It's been called the most consequential elections in US history and has ramifications for the world as well. Let's break this down into some points to help you understand why these elections are critical for the world at large. First of all, the US-China trade war. It is one of the leading reasons for global fragmentation currently. In fact, it was during President Trump's previous tenure that a shift towards China in policy was seen. President Trump started raising the tariffs on Chinese goods and vowed to bridge the trade deficit between the two. He accused Beijing of having misused some of the international economic institutions like the World Trade Organization and also said that China had carried out one of the biggest thefts in the history of the world. As the tenure changed and President Biden took over, he didn't drastically shift from that policy as well. In fact, he shored up security alliances to take on China, AUKUS being one and the Quad being another one. Meanwhile, the moves that were seen in the last 8 years between Trump and Biden led to a reaction from the global East as well, where we saw China and Russia going into a tighter embrace, deepening the fissures between the global West and the global East. The new president here in the United States will now have to ensure whether they take the same path towards or regarding China, which means that these fissures will only grow. Or will the new president look for another way out of collaboration and cooperation with China? That is going to be a significant act by the new president that will be closely watched. Let's now come to the second critical factor, democracy versus authoritarianism. A Carnegie report of 2023 suggests that the American society is emotionally polarized and not as much ideologically polarized, which means that while there are convergences between the two sides on critical policy issues, even on issues like abortion and gun violence, but because both sides are so emotionally polarized, they do not want to even reach out to each other or have a conversation because of the dislike that they have developed of the other side. This shows the deep fragmentation in the American society, and the new leader of the US will have to ensure that he or she is one who's a consensus builder, who's a person who can bring the society together rather than fragment it further. The onus is on the new POTUS, that is the President of the United States, especially at a time when there is growing authoritarianism across the world. Another point closely linked to the ethos and the values of democracy is a smooth transition of power. The 6th January insurrection is a blot on the democracy and the democratic values of any country, let alone the oldest democracy of the world, the United States. In fact, in some worrying signs, there are indications that the Republicans might not be willing to accept the outcome of the US presidential election if it is not in their favor. The rhetoric that the 2020 election was stolen has also resurfaced. So much so that across the border in Canada, there was a report that was filed which was by Policy Horizons Canada, which warned the Canadian government of a remote possibility of a possible civil war in the United States because of the ideological clashes between the two sides. Now, even though it was a one sentence in that report, but even this remote possibility being expressed is an indication that the fissures are so deep. Another critical issue is that of the policy of immigration that emerges in the United States under the new president, and which would also give a cue to several other countries on how to handle immigrants. Former President Donald Trump, during his campaign, has said that if elected back to power, he will conduct the largest mass deportation of illegal immigrants. Kamala Harris too seems to have stepped back from her earlier position of decriminalizing illegal immigrants. The campaign ad tougher indicated perhaps a change in stance. At a time when the United Nations High Commissioner of Refugees has indicated and pointed out that there are 43.4 million refugees because of the various conflicts that are going on, will the world's most powerful country and their stand on immigration not impact how the others are addressing this issue as well? This is a critical factor to remember, and there is a need that this policy of immigration is viewed from a humanitarian angle by the new president. And finally, the critical issue of who can end the conflicts that we are currently seeing in Ukraine and in Gaza. The United States president is clearly in a powerful position to influence these conflicts, and there has been talk about it during the campaigns as well. Former President Donald Trump has said that he can end the Ukraine war immediately, but there are apprehensions in Europe because they believe this can only happen because Trump will pressurize Ukraine to cede some territory to Putin. On the other hand, as far as the issue of Gaza goes, former President Trump has said that Netanyahu should end it fast, which gives an indication that this could mean intensifying military action. On the other hand, as far as Kamala Harris is concerned, she has been under criticism for being party to President Biden's decisions with regards to the illegal war in Gaza, which has led to massive and unprecedented human misery. But her recent turn, where she's focusing on the humanitarian aspect, is giving some people the hope that if she is elected the president, then there could be some space of pressure building to make her act against Israel. As far as the Ukraine war is concerned, she might not take a stand any different from President Biden. For all these reasons, the election of the new president of the United States is critical, not just for that country alone, but for the world at large.